successfully organized because they're not prepared they're not as effective in the struggle against, aggressive, negative behaviors. The Algonquin and the Iroquois were a big thing for me when I was doing my anthropology work. So the Algonquin were virtually decimated by the Iroquois, and the reason was very specifically they weren't a warrior culture, and they had no resistance. Now the Iroquois almost successfully. The only thing that allowed the Iroquois to be defeated by the West was the constant, continuous onslaught of, no matter how successful the Iroquois nations were against the invasion and the encroachment of the Western empires, there were just more that kept coming, and eventually they were just overwhelmed. But the Algonquin did what the rational organism would do, is they retreated. Those that survived retreated deeper and deeper into the north, up towards Hudson's Bay mostly, and survived there as long as they could, in harsher conditions, and adjusted to it. That becomes a kind of, to me, paradigm for the nature of what happens for us individually. And what happens in treatment is, depending on what each one of us brings into a treatment situation, orgonomy or otherwise, the thing about orgonomy that has always appealed to me is that it is a way to get at this on all fronts, if it's done correctly, and to do it much more efficiently. And subsequent to the initial phase of active treatment, it can be used to maintain, modulate, organize, ongoing or through life. Does that add up to the work democratic society or no, it doesn't, but it probably is part of what I think Reich had in mind as seeing a way of building slowly towards the possibility of increasing that potential. If population size and its concomitant problems doesn't, demolish even that possibility.
Just one more follow-up, and then I'll be quiet. So I see, I come in with my ideology, with my thoughts. Let's suppose I come in a very religious individual, and I start therapy. Mm-hmm. There's going to come a point where this is either going to fall away, or I'm going to have to say I can't do this therapy anymore.
Absolutely.
Because I get so attached to
Absolutely.
Whatever I came in with, be it my politics or my God.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I've had patients say to me, and I remember talking with Dr. Sobey about this, that you're not spiritual enough. I mean, I can't do this anymore because you don't have. They'll say to me, "What's the meaning? Don't you feel there's a meaning to life?" I say, "Absolutely." Well, many of you heard it. The meaning is life. Life is, and the meaning of it is that's it. And they say, "What? That's stupid. That's useless. That doesn't give me any hope. I'm out of here. I'm going to do this practice or that practice, or I'm going back to this or that." That's fine. I'm not belittling. It sounds like I'm joking about it. I'm not belittling that. I mean, it could be a bit of a joke, but I mean it seriously. That for them, my response is that's right. I can't offer, nor should the effective practice of orgonomy. There are some who practice Reichian therapy or orgonomy who present that kind of, goal, or we can elevate the idea of the orgasm function or self-regulation to a kind of mystical, mythical, accomplishment. I and most of the practitioners that I have been associated with and continue to work with don't, lend ourselves to that. And, it is what it is. But certainly, in many cases, on all sorts of various levels, we're actually I'm talking with someone who's a yoga adept at possibly doing a presentation on yoga and orgonomy, which will be interesting because of the struggle between most people who are very heavily into yoga, right, have a real problem, since what we do orgonomically in terms of breathing and opening the organism up is often in contradistinction to many of the practices of yoga. Not all, but many. And there's no reason, in fact, that it has to be that way, but it often is. And so some people who I know, my wife included, who have been into yoga, have found it perfectly natural to do, to use orgonomic breathing and do yoga. Other people say, I got to be out of this. I go to my yoga practice and my yoga teacher tells me I'm not doing it right and I need the yoga more than and that's fine. I mean, so there are all these kinds of, or we get the patient who comes in and says, well, if being in treatment means that I'm going to give up my work as a painter, and become a teacher or whatever, or give up my work as a painter and go into medicine because that's really what I discovered I wanted. I don't want to do that. I want to stay a painter, and so I don't want this. There are numerous ways that this plays out, but it is again, has a lot to do with our individual, what we bring in as individuals. Anyone else besides Tom? or Ben?
How did you refer to adolescence as psychosis? What did you get back in the
So we figure it would come from someone that's close to the age, but in social psychology, adolescence is often described in textbooks on adolescence as a near psychotic episode before adult organization sets in. And the examples often given are, if you look at the lives of adolescents, they're compulsive drinkers, they're compulsive druggers, they're compulsive sex. They hate you one minute, they love you the next minute, they're the best of friends. There are all these lists that we have of, and these stereotypes we have of the adolescent. It was a bit of a joke, in the sense I don't think of adolescence, but the state is a very unstable state. Interestingly, in terms of this model, there are many, I always present this to my students at the New School, is adolescence a biological developmental stage? What do you think? No.
Would you say that that's caused primarily by sexual repression in childhood?
Probably, but more significant, there are many societies that have sexual repression in childhood that don't have adolescence. Yeah, but they go right to adult sexual abuse and sexual, so adolescence actually, in good solid Marxist terms, is a direct result of what? Yeah, but particularly one element of the social culture which is not up here, which is economics. I mean, basically, you can't have adolescence until you have an economic luxury and privilege of allowing individuals who are adults, right, to wait for approximately 10 years or more. Now, in this society today, it's more like 20 years, maybe 25, to begin to take on the full adult functions of, also in good Marxist terms, what is adulthood equal? Adulthood is, in our species, reproductive and productive. Reproduction and production equals adult life. When does that happen? Biologically. Right now about 12. And so we have a situation in our society where you hit 12 and you're productive and reproductive. In our society, what are you?
Kid.
No, you're an adolescent, meaning you're being told, shut up and wait. And not only that, we have institutions, which we're talking about in terms of education. You were talking about doing an alternate high school thing. Basically, most kids who go to high school will tell you very clearly, you've all been there. What are high schools?
Jails.
That's right. They're just institutions where you can be held for, or to some degree held. I mean, how well held you are. We all have our stories about what it was like to be in those institutions and being, locked up and held. And a lot of the pathology and a lot of the destructiveness, right, was what? The result of penting up all that stuff in these kinds of, these prisons.
A full third of teenagers in this culture have contemplated suicide.
Right. And you could say that that's circumstantial in the sense of their individual despair and depression, or you can look at the other 2/3 who probably maybe have never actually contemplated it actively, but have considered it and have felt at times on any given day like they wish they could, especially if they were sitting in a class that was incredibly boring. And, you know, and anecdotally, again, one of the ergonomists who I was associated with